This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle and paperback. You too can become a sponsor of Stories, The True and the Fictional by heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/STTATF or follow the link in the show notes. Hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Stories, The True and the Fictional. Yes, it's another interview. We can't wait to bring another guest from the other side of the world, literally. But for now, Ryan, how are we going?
Mate, I am living the dream. Living the dream. I actually am living the dream. I'm out of hospital for the first time in 10 months and I'm absolutely loving it. Moved into our new place, which I'm not going to say where because, you know, fan mail and stuff. more like death threats, but moved into our new disabled friendly house and I'm absolutely loving it. I've been here 2 weeks and for once I can actually say living the dream, and I am actually living the dream. So very, very happy to be back to be home and have my own proper setup again.
Excellent. Yes, well guys, check out our sponsors, Rebecca Cassells, Martin Kearns. They got some really good stuff. All the links are in the show notes. Check out my stuff if you want to. Links are down there too. And if you feel like throwing us a few bucks on Buy Me a Coffee, we're down there. The link's down there too. Yeah. Now let's get into the show. Don Campbell, how are we?
Very well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We organised this one pretty quickly.
Yeah, we did. It was, I think, a week between arranging and starting, I think.
Yeah. So it was
Awesome.
Way to go. And for those who don't know, who is Don Campbell?
So I am a school caretaker. I work in a primary school and look after it, but in the evenings, when all the lights are out and all the chairs have been put up, I begin to write. I write horror. I enjoy the creepy side of literature. And yeah, that's me, really, down to a T. I'm a dad, a husband, and they come first, really. But one of my passions is writing.
Now, do you find, because you're a dad and you work at a school, because this is what I find in horror, children in horror movies just creep me out more than anything.
They're the scariest part of horror, I think. In fact, they tend to just throw them in for a scary element. Yeah. You could have a 12-foot tall monster chasing people round, but then just throw in a random child with dark hair and dark features, and suddenly it's become sinister.
Yeah,
the monster wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Well, you've got the most famous. Obviously, I'm a big horror buff, so I actually read a little bit of your book over the week, which I'm absolutely loving at the moment. But I'm a huge horror buff from way back. So the best examples I think of scary kids, and you have to go back to the classics like with The Omen. You know, the son of Satan, Damien, mind controlling, and you know they've done a few remakes, but nothing beats the original. Especially when you've got his nanny standing on the roof, and she's like, "I did this for you, Damien," and just jumps to a death. And then you've got the classic Children of the Corn as well, which blonde haired, blue eyes, scare the living bejesus out of you. But yeah, I would say they're two of the main. I think in terms of having scary kids in a school, I don't know if you've ever played it, Jamie. You might have, Don, but have you ever played any of the Silent Hill games?
Yeah, the old school ones.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. The originals, and there's they do quite weird things with children. In a particular, I think it's Silent Hill 2 or 3, I'm not sure, but you have to venture into a school, and let's just say that can creep the absolute crap out of you.
Yep.
And then you've got one of the original children being scary in the movie adaptation of The Shining. You've got the twins.
Yeah. Oh, of course, the twins. Yeah.
They,
The two
that
kids.
children have the ability to be complete innocents, and I think that's why they do so well on the reverse. It's because it's so abstract. It's a bit like seeing a fluffy cloud turn into a 12-legged monster. The metamorphosis between really innocent and being sinister is quite a transformation.
Yeah, I remember like one of my favorite ones is this episode of Supernatural where the changelings, like all the kids in town got changed and
Yeah,
and,
I
and
know
they're like,
exactly what you're
"Mommy,"
talking
and I'm
about.
going, "Oh," just like yeah.
And I think nowadays they still use the trope of children in scary movies and stuff like that, but they don't hit the same as like you say, The Shining, as The Omen and Children of the Corn. There was just something about those kids back from, the 60s, the 70s, and even the 80s where they absolutely just, I don't know how they do the casting, but they just hit the nail on the head with the creepiest little fuckers that you can find, and just they absolutely scare the crap out of you. But now modern horror does not scare me, but some of that stuff from like that scene in The Omen when I saw that for the first time, that where she jumps off the roof and he's just the little kid just standing there just looking up, that is forever etched in my mind. And I think. I think a lot of horror back then, without the digital effects, they didn't have the special effects that you had to rely on now, that you've got to rely on nowadays with CGI and everything. It was all real world stuff. So I think that's why they just hit a little bit harder. The little kids from those movies are just that little bit scarier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think a lot of letting the audience do some of the work with their
Hmm.
imagination
Yeah.
helps. I think that's why books are still so powerful.
Yeah.
That I can tell you roughly what you should be thinking about,
Yeah.
but if you were to look at three different people's interpretation of a character and they drew it, it would be different for each
Yeah.
person. The main, he's got blonde hair, he's got, he's tall, all that would be there. But you tend to make up the world, don't you? And I think when you do that, you think of worst case scenario.
Oh, 100%. I agree. A prime example of that for me was I read the Stephen King book It long before I saw the first movie with Tim Curry as Pennywise, and I had Pennywise pictured completely different and then this is just a clown, and you're thinking, oh yeah, I had no like the way that they did that in the film was nothing like I pictured it. I picked my clown was a hell of a lot scarier than that, but obviously it then goes to Tim Curry who makes that Pennywise so much
Mm.
scarier and fake. But yeah, you're exactly right. That's why I love reading horror stories, because my imagination and my mind is completely fucked up. And I will probably, if you ask me and Jamie to read to read your book or a horror book, I guarantee you we would have definitely different versions of those characters if you asked us to draw those. So I that's what I love about reading horror books. Like you said, it's 100% leaves your mind open to interpretation.
Cool. Well, let's dive into these icebreakers before we get too far ahead. Do you want to take the usual run of it, Ryan?
No, you can do question number one, I
Okay.
think. We'll mix
All
it
right.
up.
Mix it up. Mix it up. Okay. Nice and simple. If you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be? And we do encourage selfishness.
I was thinking we could go like, I would want to unnecessary suffering. One of the real I've decided to go for something equally is important and go for glitter.
Hmm?
Now,
Yep.
glitter serves no purpose. It gets everywhere. It
Mhm.
is the herpes of the stationery world.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
It's on the dog. It's all over the table. You go to work the next day and people are smiling at you. You realise it's because you've got this new sheen from the card that was made where the glue hadn't adhered it to the paper properly. Yeah, so glitter has got to be my get rid of, I think.
Well, the two groups of people that you will upset if we get rid of glitter are small children and strippers, because they're the only two people that I have ever seen to use glitters. Small children, obviously, they love the painting, and then strippers, because I guarantee you, every time time I have been to the strippers, I've ended up with glitter in my eye.
Yeah, I think it's a strategic method to get you in trouble when you get home. I think if it was the strippers.
Yes. Yeah, because you can't get rid of it. Even if you're not even in contact with any of the strippers, if she's like over in the corner, you will still manage to get some glitter on you. And therefore, if you're telling your wife or your partner you're down the pub just having a few beers with the boys, and you come home with glitter, you're in trouble. So yeah, I think they're the two people that will be put out with your removal of glitter. So,
but the children will always have pasta, dry pasta they can stick to paper.
yes.
They love that. We will give them that. They can have it.
Can you imagine a stripper with dried pasta instead of glitter? I'm just thinking, you go to the strippers and you end up coming home with an Italian meal. I think that's actually could work. I think we should patent that right now.
Is that tagliatelle?
Yeah. Your wife is like, you've been down the strippers again. How can you tell? Because you've got a nice little pasta necklace around your neck. You've come home with a carbonara or something, But that's next movie, Jamie. Next book you write, strippers with pasta instead of glitter.
Okay, sure.
Okay, we'll move on to question number 2. Question number 2 is what is something that's on your bucket list?
My bucket list, it may not happen. I would love to do a cameo in a film adaptation of one of my books.
Okay. Like the Stephen King route?
Yeah, like I want to be the school caretaker in one of the books where it happens in a school.
I think that's really, really good. I absolutely, I don't know about other people, but I sort of like get a little fan excited when I can see like M. Night Shyamalan. He's in pretty much every one of his movies in some point of view, as some character. Stephen King obviously was the king of it because he always has a small role in his major films. We watched the new M. Night Shyamalan film Trap. I don't know if you've seen Trap.
I haven't, no.
That he actually, you can tell he's getting a little bit more confident because he gave himself a little bit of a larger role in this film. And I was like, okay, dude, we get it. You wrote the movie, calm down. Just do like a Stan Lee, you know what I mean? Just be in it for a few seconds, not like half the movie.
Yeah.
But I could see. I think that's a realistic thing to have on your bucket list because with horror, and I'm not saying that your stuff is, but a lot of really bad stuff gets made. I love B grade and C grade and D grade horror movies where you can clearly tell it's tomato sauce instead of blood. Like I absolutely, me and my wife absolutely love watching B grade horror stuff. So what I'm saying is there's probably more chance of getting a horror book adapted into a movie. So that's a kind of realistic thing to have on your bucket list.
Yeah, I like it. And like you said, there's a lot of bad stories get made and they become almost horror comedy because it's hilarious what happened. But also the same way goes that there's some really good horror stories that get made into very bad films. Or they don't stick to the story at all. And it's like, oh, the 4 characters are now one and they're not in a small village or in a city. And it's, they tend to manipulate it. So my bucket list stipulation would have to be true to my story.
Yeah. Total control.
Absolutely.
I completely understand that. And can I ask you a question, jump in here? And you can do top 5 if you want, but what is your favorite horror movie?
Horror movies, right. Okay, so I think that take away what I just said in regards to not sticking to the storyline too closely, but I love The Shining. The Shining is one of my favourite grown-up horror films, one of the ones I watched for the first time as an adult. So I could appreciate the storyline to it. Freddy Krueger, one of the original Nightmare on Elm Streets, would probably have been my childhood favourite horror films. I wasn't restricted on television movie viewing when I was younger. I could watch whatever I wanted. So I went to the macabre. I went to Freddy Krueger. I went to Halloween. I went to Friday the 13th. All the originals. And I think, my top 5 have got to be The Shining for its videography. The way they filmed it was phenomenal. Then I would say another Stephen King adaptation, Pet Sematary.
Yep. The original, obviously.
Yeah, the original. Again, children involved make it worse. So, yeah, Pet Sematary, followed by Nightmare on Elm Street, then Halloween, then Friday the 13th. So that's my 5.
Well, 3 of those are in mine. The Friday the 13th is the first one, is one of my all-time favourites. Followed by Halloween, the first one, then Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely a number 3 for me. So yeah, I was the same as you. I didn't have any restrictions on what I was able to watch. My parents gave me a 7:30 bedtime, but I could watch whatever the hell I wanted to watch while I was awake. So I remember watching Nightmare on Elm Street, the first 3, when I was, I think, 12 or 13. So I do have quite fond memories of seeing all those originals. And I think they, as I said, with the kids ones, they hold up. I still watch all of the Friday the 13th movies at least once every 18 months. And they still hold up, like Child's Play as well. I love the Child's Play movies.
I didn't think of Chucky.
Yeah, Chucky.
Yeah,
I watched a 4.5-hour documentary on Chucky on Shudder while I was in hospital. It's they go through all the movies and they break down each one, and it didn't feel like 4.5 hours. It's really, really good. But yeah, I can growing up on all those are very similar to what you've grown up on, so I can attest to the classics just as much as you can. So sorry for my impromptu question.
That's all right. That's all right. Let's get off the horror for a bit, guys. Come on. Next question. What is the greatest sitcom ever made? And we'd like to throw in a bonus one saying, like, what's your favorite or what's your most rewatched one if it's not the one that you think is the best?
Right. So sitcom. I would say probably Friends would class as a sitcom, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So Friends is definitely the most watched sitcom in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Like everywhere I go, there'll be, did he get off the plane? References. So I think, Friends is the one that it doesn't matter. If you just want noise in the background, that can be running. Or if you want something to watch and get teared up about, you watch the last ever episode. You can feel that they're sad. But it was, the comic value in it it's clean and classic.
Yeah. Was that your favourite one?
I think I think Friends, if I had to pick one that it was the only one that was going to be left on the planet, I would say we'll keep Friends. You'll be, we've watched it from start to finish so many times, and I'm pretty sure it might be the sort of maybe a Mandela effect, but they put extra episodes in. I've watched them all, but I don't remember this episode. Yeah, and then you get to experience it again. And so they must have hid this one last time I watched it because it doesn't exist. And it happens every rewatching. Yeah. There's one that you find that wasn't
you
there
can
before.
remember all the key moments, but there's that one, it might just be a filler episode or something like that. You're like, I don't remember this one, even though you've probably watched it 100 times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's got good value for that.
Yeah. The only problem I have with it is because it was made before the binging world. They always have that capture, like the recap episodes where it's just like clips of all this stuff, and I'm going like, I just watched this. I don't need to watch this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do also like that there's nothing that happens in one episode that really correlates to the next one anyway. They'll give you a recap, but it doesn't matter. Didn't he have a broken arm?
Yeah.
Suddenly he's healed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those shows that, if your partner or if you're at a friend's place and they're in the middle of watching it, you can sit down and watch it and not have to go, oh, I'm going to have to go back and watch 4 seasons to figure out what's going on. You know what I mean? Which is a lot. Nowadays you can barely do that. So I think that's good, because I remember my sister was obsessed with that show growing up. I loved it too, but she was like, she had all the board games and all the DVDs and everything. So she would be watching it and I could just jump in and watch an episode and go, oh yeah, cool. They always had that overarching story, which sort of lasted a season, but 9 times out of 10 with those episodes, you can just jump in anywhere. And that's the sign of a good show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, let's get back on the horror train. Now with my favorite question, one of my favorite questions is, what is your zombie apocalypse plan?
Right. So I've got a few sub-questions to ask. What zombie apocalypse are we talking about? Because this could be varied. Are we talking Night of the Living Dead zombie, where they walk at 2.5 miles an hour, and the plan could be just walk away? Are we talking World War Z, where you have your sprinting manic zombies? Or, I don't know if you guys have seen it or have got it there, the Santa Clarita Diet. It's on Netflix.
Yes, I've just started watching that. I've literally just started. I'm up to season 2. I love it.
So, depending on which one we were talking about, I'll go through a little breakdown. So, if it was if it's Day of the Living Dead, then I'm getting my family, I'm coming to work, and I'm locking the school down. It's quite a secure building anyway, because it has to be. It's got high fences around it, which will take them about 4.5 months to climb over because they are really slow. And I've got sporting equipment that I could use as weapons.
Yep.
So that works out quite well. If we're talking World War Z, I think it's going to be at home, because I want to be as inconspicuous as possible and hope it just passes me like a buffalo stampede, and no one comes near me. I can just keep everyone quiet and they go away.
Or just get the flu. Just get the flu, and then they'll just ignore you completely, because they just ignore if you've got a sickness or something. They don't want you.
That's it. And then the Santa Clarita Diet, I would find a zombie as soon as possible, get bitten, and join the party.
Yep. So, Jamie, have you seen Santa Clarita Diet?
Oh, no, I haven't watched it. No.
Yeah, so basically what it is, the zombies are pretty much they're just human, but they obviously eat the flesh of other humans. But I think I'm only up to season 2, and the only bad thing I've seen about them being a zombie, aside from having to eat people, is they lose limbs. Like Drew Barrymore's character's lost a toe.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And they're kind of, you can't tell. The flesh is the same. They look the same as they did when they were alive.
Yeah, that's a little bit like Pride and Prejudice and zombies.
Yes.
Yes.
I watched that again the other day. I love that movie. I love those guys' movies.
Definitely. I watched that. I think probably about 6 months ago. I actually hadn't seen it until same with Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I hadn't seen that until about a year ago.
Yeah.
And you guys kept saying you need to watch it. You need to watch it. And it was on Disney. I finally watched it and absolutely love it. But what would you have you? I think that zombies in 28 Days Later are a little bit faster and more intense than the World War Z zombies. These zombies are throwing themselves through the windows to get to you, and they're super fast. Yeah. So what would you do in that case?
I think I'd just be doomed at that point. I run recreationally, but they don't get tired. So I think
Yeah.
I'd be in a lot of trouble. I think is my plan would be to lock my children in a secure box as possible with my wife, and I'll be bait and try and lead them away. I think at that point, I don't think there's much surviving that.
Yeah, I think they're the most intense zombies I've ever seen in those movies. In 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, and we're getting a new one 28 years later. It's coming out in April, which got Cillian Murphy in it from the original. And it's Danny Boyle, the director, same director. So I'm looking forward to that. But I think I'm in a wheelchair, Dom. So just to let you know, because I lost my leg about almost 2 years ago, and I think those zombies. I could definitely outrun the Day of the Dead zombies for sure, because I can roll pretty fast in this thing by now. And but yeah, the 28 Days Later zombies and the World War Z zombies. I don't know if the World War Z zombies would ignore me because I'm not quite fully a person
Yeah,
or not. They
I can
don't really
see. Yeah,
clarify that in the movie if you have to have a
no,
disease or you're not healthy, so to speak. So, but I think the 28 Days Later zombies, I would just literally throw myself at them, unfortunately. I'd be like, look, I'm not getting them. I'm not, these zombies are literally like kamikaze pilots. They will throw
yeah,
themselves through windows, off buildings just to get to you.
you'd have
And
to find a very steep hill.
yeah, and they don't tire. They never get tired either. So they're running constantly. So I'm out. I'm out then. I'm sorry, world. I'm just going to give up then.
There you go. Well, let's move on to our fifth and final icebreaker question. This is a throwback reference to the late 80s. But okay, so Bill and Ted arrive outside your house in their phone booth time machine and say, "Whoa, Ted, Rufus asked us to give you a free ride in our phone booth time machine." Where do you go?
I think I would probably go backward. I listened to your show and I really enjoy it, and I like hearing people's icebreaker answers,
Mhm.
and they've got really good reasons for like going into the future and finding out stuff. And some of them are. I think I want to go backward in order to see how things happened. So maybe like the creation of the pyramids. If I didn't have a specific date, and I could just say, I want to go back, but I want to go back to the building of the pyramids
Yeah.
and try and work out when that actually happened and who was doing it and how they were doing it. So when I come home, I'm allowed to come home, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
When I come home, I can say, oh, I've got a theory and display the theory and be a genius.
Would you just start building one in your backyard? Just
Why not? I'd be like, look, this is the theory behind it. I've got it down. I need some multi-ton cubes of rock, please, and we're gonna start building. I did think about going forward, but then I thought it's a bit of a waste because I'm going there anyway.
yeah.
Unless you go like a couple of thousands of years into the future or something like that.
But yeah, that could be quite depressing, couldn't it?
Or risky.
Yeah, I want to go 2,000 years ahead, and then you just turn up and there's nothing around. You're like, oh, we messed up.
Yeah. So with going back to your pyramid, you know how you said you'd go back and you go, I have a theory. Would you actually take something from the past to actually prove your theory? Because there's a lot of theories out there about the pyramids, aliens or all these kind of things. Would you take anything, or would you take your smartphone and take a video or some, how would you
That's a good question.
put a little bit of weight behind your theory?
How would I not be insane?
Well, by building them.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think that's, yeah, I think I'd have to take a photo to say this is how it was done. Yeah, I think that's going to be the most logical reason to, logical thing is to build like a scene. So like, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three, and go from there.
like those books you get with Lego.
Yeah, exactly.
When you build your Lego, did use bag one for do this step, because if you're going back just for yourself, just to see how it's done, then that's cool.
Yes.
Like you don't need to worry about that. But we don't want you coming back and going, this is my theory, and then people locking you up in an insane asylum.
Yeah, or I just become another one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I'll take photos, a series of photos, a step by step how it was built.
Don't get too close though, because they may go, "What are you doing out of your line?" and throw you in there, and you suddenly.
What is that tile you have?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
So, can you bear with me 2 seconds? I'm just going to pop on charge because there's Diz on charge. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, no worries. This podcast is brought to you by Martin Kearns and the Valor of Valhalla series. In the battle between two ancient evils, can one naive young man become the last hope against powerful creatures of legend? Beneath the Veil is the gripping first book in the Valor of Valhalla dark urban fantasy series. If you like reluctant heroes, infernal myths, and bloody epic clashes, then you'll love Martin Kearns' formidable foray into the unknown. So head on over to readkearns.com and grab yourself a copy of Beneath the Veil today.
Well, I saw you sort of looking away, and I thought, oh my God, we were just talking about, creepy kids in a school, and you said there's no one here. Someone's coming into Silent Hill.
Yeah, I put a creepy kid in my zombie book, and I was like, I could only write it in the day, man.
Yes. I've had it before where I've written a story and had to stop writing it and wrote a different story.
Yeah.
It's actually how this book, my most recent release, came to life, because I'm writing a novel, which should be out hopefully this year, and I needed to take a break from the novel because it was getting a bit intense. So I started writing short stories, which has built the collection that I released before the novel. So yeah, I do that. I get a bit scared of my own mind.
So are you one of those people that can't watch horror movies at night time?
No, horror movies, I love the fear of that, because I feel once you've turned it off, it doesn't stay with you quite the same. And when you're writing horror, I feel that you're thinking a step ahead where it's going to go. It's like a chess game.
Yeah. And
you know that you've had enough of the main character and they're going to become zombie fodder. And you've thought of 1,000 ways that could happen. And then you go to bed and relive each one of them.
That's right. So are you more of a plotter or a pantser? Like, do you plan things out, or do you?
My stories come almost fully formed.
Oh, awesome.
But they stem from a simple concept. Like someone will say one sentence to me and I'll be like, that's interesting. And then continue with how could I make this a story? I've got a recent example that I've come up with, and it came from a joke that I saw on Instagram, a very, very dark, I guess it is a funny joke, but at the same time, it's got very, very dark matter to it. So the joke was that a lot of people, if they go back in time, a bit quite close to your Bill and Ted's reference, if you go back in time, would you kill baby Hitler? And most people are like, yeah, I'd kill baby Hitler. And so you'd kill a baby. Okay, that's interesting. But they said they went through a series of people going, yeah, I'll do it. And then he said, I wonder what Madeleine McCann did in her future. Which I get.
Wow, it's funny.
Yes, it's exactly that. It was a thought about joke, which is it's a very sad matter. So my brain, instead of thinking about the joke, wouldn't that be interesting if a child goes missing and everyone wants to find out what happened with the child, and then it turns out that there were actually someone from the future coming back to prevent something terrible. But in the current day, everyone's sad that the child's gone missing because they haven't actually done anything yet. So that kind of thing happens a lot. What would happen if this happened? What would happen if that happened? So most of my stories have come from a very simple idea, or I'll listen to a podcast and they'll be discussing a topic and suddenly that's a story.
Yeah. No, I'm very similar, but only it's annoying because I like to read books, but it's very difficult for me. I'm very slow because I will read not even a paragraph and then an idea will come into my head and my mind goes off here and it's just like, all right, go back.
Yeah.
Nope, mind wanders again, It's just...
It's a bit like you kind of feel like, oh, I would have done it differently.
Yeah.
So I need to now create a whole story so I can then do this bit differently.
Yeah.
It's like, but I wouldn't have had him walk into the dungeon. He would have done something else. So now I've got a whole story I need to write to get to a dungeon scene. So there's no plagiarism.
Yeah. You got to change scenarios.
So who would you say, obviously, with horror, there's, there's the Stephen King, there's the Dean Koontz, there's, people like that. But who would say be an inspiration to you in terms of your writing?
So I would go with the classics, your Stephen King's, Koontz, Christopher Pike.
Yep. Christopher, I've heard that name in a long time. That's
awesome. I was talking to him the other day via email.
Really?
So I was talking to him. We were chatting about my work and his work. I'm sure I'm allowed to say he's working on something at the moment, like a trilogy book set. At the moment, but he's very much a tech phobe. Like his email address is still AOL.
Wow.
And he's getting on in years, so it was quite an honor for me to be able to talk to him, like before he either doesn't communicate online or like just disappears, which sadly I think happens to a lot of authors. They they get out of the popular loop and.
Yeah.
Then people don't really think about them until there's a memorial somewhere, which is quite sad. Yeah. It was nice to talk to him. Christopher Pike, Stephen King, Koontz, Nick Cutter. Have you heard of Nick Cutter?
I know the name.
So Nick Cutter, he's done quite a few, but he done one called Troop. And I only read it. This shows how fickle I only read it because Stephen King said it was scary.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, right, and he wasn't wrong. It's anyone that hasn't read that, it's a very body horror. So things happening. But if you've got quite a vivid imagination, like you, Jamie, it's probably not the ideal for and you, Ryan, actually, you're the one who, you're the big reader in your setup, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Do you ever proofread Jamie's bits?
I have read his new book. I've read the first 2 chapters, but the thing is, it's not because he's my best mate. It's that I really like his writing style because I've read his books. I can't find anything wrong with it, and I'm not trying to butter him up. Because I read so much, and I guess with Ancora, because I know a little bit more about the story, like the history and the story and everything like that. I guess that's why I really enjoyed reading that. But the Bucks Night trilogy was absolutely amazing. I absolutely love it. I had nothing bad to say about it. And I'll say something bad about it if there's something bad to be said about it. But I didn't read the Emu Wars before it came out, but the others I have. And
that is a brilliant book, Emu Wars.
Yeah, it's doing really well, man. It just kind of, I've mentioned this a lot in the podcast. I didn't set out to be a writer. I had an idea I wanted to get it out there. I thought, oh yeah, I'll write a book, and then it's exploded. Like I got a lot of schools over in the US are contacting me because they're doing school projects on it, and they're using it as excerpts in their speeches. And I'm going, this is just crazy. You know,
It's amazing.
I'm not making enough to live on, but but it's just the
No,
fact that it's still selling. You know,
it's fantastic.
A lot of people, like when I first heard about it, when Jamie first told me about it, I didn't believe him. And then I actually did my research and like, wow, this actually freaking happened in Australia. And, I think a lot of people are interested in it because it just sounds absolutely made up. And it sounds,
Absolutely.
but it's true. It's an actual true part of Australian history.
Yeah, we've been trying to bury it. I think we've actively been trying to bury it. Like all the docos on YouTube are from Americans saying,
So
"You know what happened in Australia?"
If you go missing at some point, it's going to be like a government conspiracy to silence the.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think us Australians are that organised that we have like a CIA type, group of people that will try and take Jamie out. But plus he lives in the mountains, so he's got a perfect like sniper point. He can just hide it.
Yeah.
So there's your zombie apocalypse plan. Just stay home.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody asks me, I'm going like, I'll just set up a ticket store up the front, and people can come in because they're all coming up here. You know, like it's the plan. Head to the mountains. You know,
change your plan. I'm going to Jamie's.
Yeah. Yeah.
But did you, Don? I know he's not obviously as famous. Well, he might be as famous as Stephen King and Dean Koontz and Christopher Pike. Did you? I grew up a lot on R.L. Stine, like starting on the Goosebumps and then moving on to his more mature works like Superstition. Also, the Fear Street saga, which was a lot more mature than obviously the Goosebumps. Did you find that you were a fan of R.L. Stine growing up?
Yes. So I enjoyed the books, but I found that once you start reading more grown-up focused books, so I was very young when I started to read the Stephen King books. So going back to R.L. Stine felt a bit like going from watching like a grown-up show to Sesame Street. It felt childish reading it, and a lot of the concepts are the same. The ideas are very similar in a lot of the books. Like Stephen King and Stein have got very similar ideas, possessions, or someone turns into something like metamorphosis, but the way it's delivered is child friendly, and I guess I found it patronizing a bit when I was reading it as an adult, but as a child I loved it. It was definitely a good stepping stone into getting into scarier stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially reading Stephen King. I mean, that guy can't write a book that's under 800-900 pages. Even the Dark Tower series, when you put it all together, it's quite involved and quite large. But I was the same. I grew up as a child on Goosebumps. I remember my mum and dad would buy me one a month until I had the whole collection. And I remember reading those as a child. You're like, whoa, this is all happening. But then you move on. Like I actually went to Dean Koontz before I went to Stephen King, because that's what our library had the most of, the more Dean Koontz and Stephen King. And then you're right, like you read that and you're like, oh, okay. As I got older, 12, 13, 14, you start reading the more mature stuff. And then you sort of can't go. I have tried to go back to Goosebumps as an adult, and it just doesn't pack that punch as it does. And I think he did have some mature books, but he mainly focused on the Goosebumps and then the Fear Street for the teenagers. Because I think that's what it was marketed at. There wasn't very many horror books for kids, so to speak, around at the time. So I think that's where he made all of his money. and and now there's a Goosebumps TV show, which is actually pretty dark on Disney Plus. Like not the original Goosebumps
David
TV show that
Schwimmer.
came out.
David Schwimmer's in it, yeah. Ross.
Yeah, he's in season 2. Justin Long is in season 1.
Oh, nice.
It's actually season 1 we just watched because we thought it would be good for a laugh, and that we actually got thrown in. It's pretty dark. It's one of the darker things that you can find on Disney Plus. So I'd recommend giving it a watch. But
I mean, Justin Long was in Jeepers Creepers and that, wasn't he?
yes, he was the skin boy at the end, unfortunately. But the TV show on Disney Plus is quite good. It's on Disney Plus out here. I'm assuming it's probably on Disney Plus in the UK. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch, 100%. But yeah,
Yeah, no, so I would look it up. I think if it's on the darker side, it's just who I involve in the viewing of it. So if it's darker but not terribly graphic, my wife will watch it. No. If it's playful like Goosebumps, then my children can watch it. And otherwise, I'm watching it by myself, like a little horror troll.
Under the covers.
I would probably say it's not gory because it's not like half the new horror movies that come out where they're just gore everywhere. It's more of a psychological horror.
Yeah.
Like it's that's how I could describe it. I would say that if your children or your child is probably 15 or up, they could probably watch it. I would say your wife will probably enjoy it. Not knowing anything about your wife, but just in saying that, knowing my wife liked it, and she doesn't like horror movies at all, possession and everything like that. She cannot watch. I have to watch them by myself, but she liked that. So it was more of a psychological horror, and just really well acted. Like the people that they've cast, aside from Justin Long, they're pretty much all nobodies, but it's kind of got that Freddy Krueger feel, where the adults of the town have done something that the kids are kind of paying for.
Yes.
But yeah, it's obviously modern because the first season came out last year, and the year before, and the second season came out like last year. But I definitely think it'd be something for you and your wife to enjoy together.
Nice.
It's not like full gore, absolutely body parts flying everywhere, anything like that.
You mean not like Renfield? If you watch
Renfield? Have you seen Renfield?
It's Nicolas Cage as Dracula.
Oh, mm-hmm.
But Nicholas Hoult as his servant, and it's Renfield, and he goes to group because he's got a toxic boss, and and everyone's like, he's telling him this story, and it's about Dracula, and they're acting like he's just some abusive boss.
Oh my god! So he's gone to group to basically say my boss Dracula is a terrible person.
Yeah,
where everyone else is going about their lunch breaks are too short. He's going, he eats people.
Yes.
But he doesn't actually say it's Dracula until Dracula actually makes an appearance.
Yeah.
And it's really good. It's got just the right amount of horror, comedy, and just Nicolas Cage in one of his best roles in a long time.
Right.
So check it out. I think it's on Netflix or Prime or something. It's called Renfield.
Yeah, he leans right into it.
I've watched it 3 times.
Yeah, there's just this amazing bit where Renfield's basically quit, and he hasn't told Dracula he's quit. He just stopped turning up to work, and then he's redone his whole apartment, and he's got a new clothes and all that stuff. And he comes home and he opens the door, and there's Dracula sitting inside, and he's like, "How the hell did you get inside?" And he looks down at the doormat and says, "Welcome, come on in."
He's invited him in with the doormat.
Yeah.
It has all of those old vampire tropes, that they have to be invited in and garlic and all this kind of stuff. But it was really, I was surprised at how good it was. Yeah. As I said, I've seen it multiple times now. Yeah. Definitely. It's as I said, there is a lot of gore and a lot of limbs flying everywhere and everything like that, but it's really good.
It's comedy gore.
Comedy gore.
Yeah.
Like Santa Clarita Diet.
Yeah.
Or even Deadpool to an extent.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Nice.
I'll tell you what I watched for the first time the other day. I think, Jamie, you recommended it. It's a zombie movie called Warm Bodies.
All right, yeah, Nicholas Hoult.
Nicholas
Yeah.
Hoult was in it. It's one of his earlier movies. My wife put it on, and I'm like, I've never seen this. I thought it was full on romantic,
Yeah.
like a romance movie, but it was really, really good. It's basically about, the world's been taken over by zombies. And it's from the perspective of this zombie played by Nicholas Hoult. And, he's talking about his best friend, and they barely, they just sit there for hours and just grunt at each other. And, and they go out on an eating raid with a whole bunch of them, and he sees this girl, and he eats her boyfriend and gets all his so when they eat brains, they get the memories of the person.
Oh,
And
right.
so he gets all these, he wants more out of life than being a zombie. It sounds really bad, but it's really good. And so he eats the boyfriend's brains, and then he falls in love with this girl and takes her back to the zombie, like where all the zombies are living in this airport. And it's all about their relationship. But what he finds is, as she starts to get feelings for him and spending time with him, he's slowly turning human, or turning back. And then eventually at the end, he becomes human again. And so it's about the journey that gets there. John Malkovich is in it as like the president, the new president. David Franco is her boyfriend. It's really good. If you check it out,
It's got some big names in it.
Yeah.
and it's not overly gory too. So it's one like I feel you could sit down and watch with your kids.
Right.
It's. I was surprised because I know, Jamie, you said you'd watched it a while ago.
Oh, yeah,
And
on a whim.
yeah, and you said it was good, and I thought, okay. And then Nicholas Hoult, I love pretty much everything he's in. And I watched it. So yeah, any of our viewers or yourself, Don, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's called Warm Bodies. It's, I think, around 2015 came out.
Look at
Nice.
that. Look, we got two. Welcome to the Recommending Nicholas Hoult Movies podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
And if we're gonna
Renfeld,
talk
and then for
about
something more
recommending-
lighter.
We're going to recommend Nicholas Hoult movies. There's a horror movie called The Menu, which is great on Disney Plus, with Nicholas Hoult as one of the main characters, and Ray Fiennes. So there you go, three Nicholas Hoult movies.
This episode is brought to you by
There you
Nicholas
go.
Hoult.
And if you want a fourth Nicholas Hoult horror movie, he's actually in the new Nosferatu movie, which I have got, but I haven't watched yet. I really want to watch it.
That is, I watched it in the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the cinema when it first came out, and I went with a really close friend of mine who actually who inspired me to start writing. Stephen Lockyer, big shout out to him. But I went with him to watch it because, we went to watch a different film and they had no tickets left. Or the screen was down. There was some reason we couldn't go in. I can't really remember. But they said, you can pick any other movie and you can go in for free. So we were like, okay. So we went through and I saw Nosferatu. And I hadn't actually heard much about it, which is odd because I hear about it all the time now. But I thought it was the Willem Dafoe's movie where he plays Nosferatu.
Oh, okay. No, it's Bill Skarsgård, the guy that plays Pennywise in the new Eat movie.
Yeah, so Willem Dafoe is also in this Nosferatu movie as someone else. Yes. But I thought it was obviously like a replaying of, like, they were just brought that one back out just so people could watch it. It was like a Tuesday night. So I thought maybe they were just doing a showing of it. So when I went in, and I was, because it's supposed to be comedic, the one that Willem Dafoe played in Nosferatu. It's like slightly comedic. And then it started, and I looked at him and I said, I don't think this is the film I thought it was. And we watched it, and for the first time in, I would say, 10 years, I was grossed out by a film. And it wasn't because it was massively graphic. It was in the cinema, the sound was vile. Like the sound of like him eating, you could hear like him slurping and swallowing, but it was like those videos where they touch the microphone, whatever that's called. It was like that, but in the cinema with like the sucking of. Oh, it was. I had goosebumps, just like, oh, this is horrible.
Yeah.
I left, and I couldn't stop thinking about Nosferatu for about 3 days.
Awesome.
It just stayed with me. So yeah, watch it. It's amazing. But put your surround sound on to get grossed out properly.
Yeah, my wife just recently set up my now that I'm home, my Sony soundbar with my massive Sony TV. So I definitely will be playing. I'll probably try and get her to watch it tomorrow. But that's actually it's a remake of a remake, because the initial Nosferatu came out in the 1920s, and then they did a remake, and that 1920s one would. Funnily enough, the guy that played the Bill Skarsgård and Willem Dafoe character's name was Max Schreck, and that's where they got the name for Batman Returns for the villain Christopher Walken's character in Batman Returns. His name's Max Schreck, and they got that from that Nosferatu film. But yeah, that came out in the 20s, and then they did a remake in the 60s, and then this is the third iteration.
Yeah, because in the 20s it was a silent movie, wasn't it?
Yes.
So,
the first one was in the 20s, yeah.
And and then the 60s. You're like an encyclopedia. This is amazing.
I love my horror movies and horror movies that, and I love Batman. I'm a massive comic book nerd, and Batman is my go-to. So anything Batman, I will be able to tell you. But yeah, the things that I love and I'm passionate about, for some reason, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I can tell you who starred in a movie in the 1920s based off on Nosferatu. Because it was initially technically the first ever vampire movie that was created was Nosferatu. But yeah, look, this is not the Nicholas Hoult horror movie podcast. This is a podcast about you, Don. So we've obviously
done so much more than me,
gone over your who inspired you. So why don't you tell us about the book that is currently available now?
Okay, so my book that I've got currently out now is Midnight Harvest. Now, Midnight Harvest, I made a little character. He's like I call him Mr. Rags.
That's awesome.
He's a creepy, very minimal scarecrow. So people can make up their own mind about what's in the shadows of the picture. So I made him. It's a collection of short stories. Each one is completely different. So there's no two that could be misconstrued as an extension of a previous one. I've made it deliberate effort to make sure that each story would tickle a small part of someone that makes them scared. So I've went for different elements. So there's some being stranded, being trapped in certain situations. There's aliens. There's something for everyone that likes to be scared by something. But I hope that people walk away with an appreciation for all of them.
Yeah.
But one is more. They're drawn to one more than the other. It's I guess a little bit of marketing as well, because if I get a lot of people saying, well, we really like this element, then my next book, I can steer toward that a bit more. The book's obviously horror fiction. There's one story in the book that was stolen completely from history, a bit like the Emu War.
Well, yeah.
And it's in the form of, I don't know how far you've got, Ryan, through it, but it's built in journal entries.
Oh, I haven't read that one.
Okay, so it's called The Wages of Salt. Now, it's based on when the whaling trade was very affluent. Whale blubber was very, very sought after. I heard about it on a podcast I was listening to. Someone was telling me about this ship, the Essex, that got capsized or sunk by a whale during its expedition, which is quite ironic. So I was listening to the podcast, and they were telling me about the history behind it and how horrific the boat's conditions were, etc. So I thought, oh, that sounds terrible. That sounds horrible. And then they talked about the Essex sinking. It's a very popular podcast, which I won't mention the name of, but I think most people have listened to his show. But they were talking about the ship sunk, and they all jumped overboard, got into life rafts, and they survived for months on the ocean.
Wow.
Now, they ended up getting stranded on an island for a while, and then thought, we're going to die here because there's nothing here. There was like 5 eggs from that bird's nest, and now we have nothing to eat. So we might as well get back on our rafts and go back to sea to try and survive more, to see if we can find land. So they get back in their rafts and off they go. Obviously, it's months. So people start to starve, and people start to work out who they're eating first.
Yeah.
And this all happened. It's like documented. There was some survivors that got off of the life rafts after all of this, and they told their story. But I looked on a website, Britannia website, at the history behind it, and I looked through the manifest. And as I was only doing it, wasn't doing it for writing purposes, but I was just really interested in it. Went through the manifest, and on it there was a couple of names. There was a couple of slots, but one deckhand had no name. It just said deckhand, and I thought, that's my person.
Are you sure that wasn't his name, Deckhand?
Yeah, it might be my deckhand. He was bullied in school. That's why he went on the boat. So I thought that character is going to be my character, and I'll write his experience of this whole situation. And I gave him a bit of a backstory, so people will enjoy like the reason he decided to go on the boat, and it's his slow descent into madness throughout the journal entries. So that's the only one that's based on fact. But it's quite fun if you read it to then go look at the history, and you'll see that I've plucked dates and times and things from historical events to plot it together. But like all my books come in that sort of form. I'll hear one thing and I'll cling to it, and it'll become a story.
Awesome.
I think I like whenever I watch a horror movie or read a horror book and it's based on true events, whether it's 10% or 90%, like prime example, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, based on serial killer Ed Gein. To know that it is based on a true event just makes it that much scarier for me personally.
Yeah.
Because you watch all these movies and you're like, oh yeah, there's no way that these can be true. And then, that famous first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie where they play the police tape at the start of when they actually went to Ed Gein's house, and that's who they baked the Leatherface on. It just made it that much more creepier.
Absolutely. When you think there's reality there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not talking about like your Paranormal Activity movies or your Blair Witch Project or anything, which, we know are, they say based on real events, but it's complete and utter bullshit.
No, hey. Yeah. People went camping with the camera, man. That's it. There was no witch.
There are very few horror movies that actually have that. So I think that when I get to that story, I think that'll probably end up being my favorite story because, like you said, there's something for everyone. I actually enjoy the horrors that are based on true events. So I think that will probably end up being my favorite.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, it's I do enjoy putting together all the things that make me scared, talking to people to find out what makes them scared, and then making them scared with my stories. So it's I think it's going to work quite well for most people. I've had good feedback. We've got good reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. People are enjoying it. So I never thought I'd ever write a book, but when you get encouragement off a friend, it makes you think you can do it. It was nice.
Well, just a disclaimer: any of the stories, do any of them have spider or arachnid issues in them?
No.
Good. Okay, I'll finish the book then.
There
That's
is
my one fear. That's the one thing that scares me in this world. Not lions, not tigers, bears, whatever. Spiders.
yeah,
I
but you
would
live in
take.
Australia.
I would take. Yeah, exactly. And I'm born in the country that has like freaking 9 out of 10 most deadliest spiders in the world. But I would take. I would rather get
Snakes.
taken. I would rather be chased by a lion than have a tiny little spider crawl on my body. And
Bless
that's
you.
not me exaggerating. That would my wife has heard my screams. When there's a huntsman's because where we used to live, we used to get huntsman's all the time. And my wife befriends them. She loves spiders, and she knows I hate them. So she knows that if there's one in there, they're dead. They're going to die. There's no put them under a glass and take them outside. They will because I believe they will come back with reinforcements. And I cannot. And the funniest thing is, one of my favorite comic book heroes is Spider-Man, and I can deal with that, but just any kind of horror or anything that has spiders, like for example, Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, or it's either the Fellowship of the Ring or the Two Towers. That scene where Sam fights the big spiders, I cannot
Yeah.
watch. Harry Potter, I think the Chamber of Secrets, where they go into the forest and there's I think it's Agaroth or something, the big spider with all the little spiders crawling around. No, I'm out. I can't even watch that arachnophobia movie that came out in the 90s. So yeah, if you ever write anything with spiders in it, I'm sorry, that's one book I'm not going to be able to read.
I'll put in parentheses next to it. Ryan, don't read this.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
Because I love reading horror books. And I from what I've read of yours, I've read the first two stories. And I think and I'm not trying to toot you on, I think you're a brilliant horror writer. And I see you doing a lot more books in the future. So please, if you put spiders in there, just
Let you know first.
just send me a message on social media and say, hey, chapter 3 to 4, don't read. And I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up from chapter 5. I'll get what I need to get from chapters 1 to 5 onwards. I don't want to not read your work because there's spiders in them. So I'm not saying don't put them in there. I'm just saying give me a message and say, hey, my new book, chapters 3 to 5, don't read.
Or print a special edition for Ryan and change the word spider to rabbit or something,
Yeah.
Or snakes. You can do snakes. I don't mind snakes. I don't like I would hate to have one in my house, but I'm not afraid of them. But spiders, even the daddy long leg spiders, the harmless ones, I cannot, I will, if I see one while I'm in the shower, I will literally punch a hole in my bathroom wall to kill it.
Oh, it'd make a good scene, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I know nothing scares me like at all. Like I'm going through the process of learning how to walk again, and I'm not afraid of falling. I'm not afraid of failing or anything like that. But if you put a spider in front of me, I will run, and I can't run at the moment. If you get me, but yeah, I cannot stand spiders. That's my one kryptonite, my piece of kryptonite.
Do you have one, Jamie?
Cassowaries.
Really?
Cassowaries.
So they're an Australian bird.
No,
Yeah.
well, they are in Australia, but they're more New Guinea, maybe. There's an island
Okay.
somewhere. Yeah, they're essentially dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get it. They're creepy things.
They've got a kill count too. Like I think they kill like 12 people a year or something.
Wow.
I'm
And
gonna
jump
send
at
you a
you.
picture in the chat, Don. Don't look at it, Jamie. But I'll send you a picture of what a cassowary is. They do look like dinosaurs.
No,
I'm not
they
lying.
they have raptor claws, man, and they jump and stab people. Like there was an emergency call that was recorded once of a guy calling him, I've been stabbed by a cassowary,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Killed by a bird.
There,
Wow.
I've got the perfect image, so I'm gonna send it through the chat.
I can look at photos, but when I see one, I'll never
different
forget
stories.
it. I was at a wildlife park and it just like literally emerged from the bushes. I was just like, what is that? And it freaked the crap out of me. And I'm going like, stay behind the fence. Stay behind the
There
fence.
you go. I've just sent it through chat. So Jamie, I will let you know it's going to show up in the chat, the
Oh,
picture of it.
there's a card. Like I said, I can look at them when we're out in the
Oh,
wild.
that is a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dinosaur had a love child with a
Make it
turkey.
bigger.
Mm.
You can look at its claws. It does have raptor claws.
I'll bring one up
Yeah.
in the edit too. But yeah, no, they jump at you, they stomp on you, they kill you.
Right.
I have a healthy distrust of emus. I don't
I
trust
was
them.
going to say that's an angry emu, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, but this has like a bone fin. There's three types of cassowary because I did look into them for. I was going to do another emu kind of book, but I was going to do something about them because they're the biggest threat to cassowaries in Australia are wild pigs.
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought, well, let's do an
War.
emu war type of book set in the 70s and call it Vietnam. So that's on the list somewhere if I ever get around to it.
Oh,
But yeah,
that is good.
cassowaries.
I
Look,
like that.
I grew up. Like I said, I live in the mountains. I grew up around spiders. Like I'll probably come home and once every couple of months I'll put a spider under the Tupperware container and take it outside, flick it, and then a kookaburra will eat it. Like they don't come back in. Um, and the irony about the huntsman is they're huge. You see the photos of them; they're as big as your hand. Like they're friendly. They're not
Mm.
poisonous.
Yeah.
And if you leave them in your house, they'll eat all the bugs. It's
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Mine is I'm terribly phobic of clowns.
Of what? Sorry.
clowns.
Clowns.
Clowns. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But only regular looking clowns.
All right.
Like Pennywise, it's fine.
Yeah.
Art the clown doesn't scare me.
Crusty.
Krusty the Clown's fine. It's the classic, like,
The circus clowns.
yeah, like
Like
Ron
Caroline
McDonald.
Gacy, Pogo.
Yes, those kind of. I think that and even the original Pennywise from the original movies
Yeah.
gets me a bit because he's clowny. He looks
Yeah.
more when he's not angry. He looks like a normal clown waving.
Yeah.
It. I don't like it.
Okay.
Have you? I'm thinking you may have, Ryan, but the Ross Noble clown horror movie he did.
Yes, I have
Did you
actually.
ever watch that?
No.
That's actually really good. I was surprised at him because I didn't think he like I love Ross. Me and Jamie, I love Ross Noble. I've watched pretty much all of his comedy specialties. His series that he did in Australia where he went around Australia just talking to people with weird things
Yeah.
but that movie I found out that existed and I'm like, okay, it's Ross Noble he's probably like a supporting character. Nope.
No, he played the lead.
He is really good at horror. And
Is it a regular clown?
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. He used to be a kids performing clown, and he died at the party or something. And
No, so basically what happens is just an overview. So you're correct about that. He is a kids performer as a clown, but he finds this clown suit. I can't remember, it's been a while, but I can't remember if it's in his attic or he found it at a thrift shop or something like that. But he puts it on and it's kind of like a possession thing. But he puts it on for a little while and then takes it off. But the longer he leaves it on for, the more it takes over him and makes him want to kill people and all this kind of thing. So it's as I said, sounds very B grade, but he's actually really, really good. I think it's just called Clown, to be honest with you.
yeah,
But yeah, it's really good. I watched it probably about 10 years ago when I was really into Ross Noble. But yeah, 100% really good.
Oh, I might get a quick glimpse to see if I can tolerate that clown, and then.
Oh no, he is very basic clown. You won't be able to.
Oh, yeah, then I'll be written off.
it's called Stitches.
Oh, Stitches, that's right. Yeah, because that's the name of the clown.
Yeah,
Stitches the clown.
yeah. Came out in 2012.
Yeah, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
I watched it probably 2015. Yeah,
Yeah,
but he's
Ross
very
Noble,
good.
yeah.
But if you don't like clowns, I would definitely stay away from it because there's a lot of the before when he actually just was dressing up as a clown and it's a very basic clown.
Yeah.
And then when he gets the suit, it's still pretty basic, but he just gets more
Psychotic.
decomposed as time goes on.
Right. Yeah. No,
So, yeah.
I'll give that one a miss.
Yes.
Stick to the stand-up.
Yeah.
I feel bad because we're talking about more about movies than we are about your actual books.
Like I like when I listen to your show, it feels like I'm listening to friends talk, which is
That's
really
what
nice.
we go for. That's 100% what we go for.
And then when I'm listening and you guys are chatting, like in my head, I'm adding to the conversation. So for me, this is weird that I am in the conversation. So this is great.
Well,
this is great. My
when
book,
when you listen back to it, you'll be having two conversations.
my book will be in the podcast.
Yes.
But you can get to know me
Yeah.
and what I'm scared of.
That's it.
And that's what we like. That's what me and Jamie set out to do because there's a lot of author podcasts out there and they're very regimented. Like we send you a list of questions. Doesn't mean we're going to ask them. Like we will ask them all, but we like to call us a tangent podcast because we do, especially when it comes to people like yourself with horror, which I absolutely love. So I have a million different questions, but we generally go off on a tangent. So it's like three people having a chat rather than a regimented interview podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's why we sort of have a bit of a following because we're different to what is actually out there.
Yeah.
In terms of that. But there is one question that I always do ask every author, and I'm going to ask it right here now. Now, with your cover, the cover of your book, which I actually absolutely love,
Yeah.
is that something you designed yourself, or do you have a cover artist that you use for your books?
I made this in Photoshop.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah. And it's one of those things so I originally came up with the character. I just wanted it to be it's basically a crucifix.
Yeah.
With a round head and a rag draped over it. So a lot of it is basically just textures that you can get. The corn at the bottom on the actual cornfield itself is like a brush that you can get on any Photoshop program. And as you drag it across, it just does random. And then I just built that up of layers. So it's actually quite a simple. I do portrait art. I draw a lot. But this was very unchallenging because it's simple. But people seem to love this more than my pictures that takes me weeks to draw, and this is a couple of hours.
It is probably one of the better covers that we've seen from all the authors that we have on the podcast. A lot of people have specific artists that they use. And that's why I honestly thought that you were going to say, yeah, I've got this artist that I use, and not just like, oh, I knocked it up on Photoshop, because it actually looks really good. And as I said, I'm not just blowing smoke up you, but it is actually it is one of my favorite covers. And I think because of that simplicity, but it also, if you didn't have the name of the book on it, I would know it was horror straight away.
Yes, that was my main important thing. As I didn't want. Sometimes I'll pick up a book and I'll have you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, as they tell us. But the first thing you look at is the art, and then you look at it, and it will be a really nice poppy picture, and it looks like it's going to be like some sort of like romance comedy type book. And then, but in the corner, there's like something sinister, like there's a knife.
Yeah,
I never noticed a knife.
Yeah.
I've seen this lady looking happy, and then I've started reading it, and now it's like, oh, this is actually a dark story. Where I wanted people to feel, the main thing was to feel like you were a bit cold while you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Like you weren't comfortable, that you're looking at this thing and think, I don't quite feel right. A bit eerie. And that was the main thing about it. And I didn't want to make it too detailed because the book's a collection of short stories.
Yeah.
There's actually not a scarecrow in any of the stories. Spoiler alert.
It's clickbait.
Yeah. Although I came up with his name, so now I am going to write a story, but he's not going to be in this book.
Yeah. So is he going to
Well,
be in another book?
you can always say like that movie, scary stories to tell in the dark. Then or going back even further to the old Creep Show TV show, he could just be
Yes.
like the narrator or the curator of the stories. Do you know what I mean? Like that to me,
Yeah.
when I saw the cover, I thought, and maybe it's just because I love those Creep Show and those kind of anthology series. Like I love the VHS movies because they're all about, there's like 5 different stories in one movie. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, so maybe the Scarecrow is going to be the one who is actually telling the story, and that's the
I
impression
like
that I
that. If I
like.
use that, I'll definitely credit you.
That's fine. Just make me a character that dies in your next horror book. That's all I ask.
100%. Done.
I always wanted to be I don't even care if I die in the first chapter. I just want to be killed in a movie. That would be
I
awesome.
was going to do this is actually quite funny. I was going to put something out onto Instagram, an application form where people can submit themselves
For
to
death?
be killed in one of my stories.
Nice.
It was going to be called "I Will Literarily Kill You."
Yes.
Love it.
So
Absolutely
you
love
can
it.
sign up and you can add, if you like, you'd be able to add a photo along with your name. So then your character will have a description. Otherwise, it will just be a name. But yeah, 100%, Ryan, you're in.
Excellent. See, it's not about what you know, it's who you know.
Now, can you kill him by a giant spider?
I won't read the
That's
book
it.
then, Jamie. I need to be able to read about
No,
myself.
but out of nowhere, like do this build up, and you think it's going to be some monster, and like you're fixating on the clown or the vampire or whatever, and then just out of nowhere, a spider just goes, you know.
Then
So it
I'll
doesn't.
never be. You know how much I like reading. I'm very modest. I love reading about myself in your wedding trilogy.
Yeah.
I like reading. If I die by a spider, I won't be able to read it, and I won't be
No,
able to enjoy
no,
it.
that's all right. No,
Okay,
no,
well, we
Any
won't, we
other
won't
way,
do
I'm happy.
no.
Any other way, I'm happy. You can kill me. What you? I'm not even going to say how. You let your mind do the talking. I'm happy.
Consider it
I'm
done.
happy to be killed anyway.
Awesome.
But yeah, I really like the cover. I really dig it. I think it's
Yeah.
perfect for the story. Well, as I said, I've only read the first 2 stories, but it's perfect for an anthology or short stories tale because it's not taking anything away from the stories, but it's also, as I said, if you didn't have the name on the book, I would immediately be able to go, okay, this is my kind of book. It's a horror book. So yeah, I cannot believe you just said, oh, I just whipped it up on
Oh, I
Photoshop.
just whipped it up. Yeah.
I've got a trailer. It's like a very, very short trailer. It's like 10 seconds for the book on my Instagram.
Okay.
That was generated using a video creating AI. I would like to put a disclaimer out. So I took a picture of this and uploaded it onto a website and then described what I wanted to happen in the scene. And all it is the field looks bigger
Yeah.
and the camera zooms towards the Scarecrow. That's literally all that happened. But the corn is moving and
Yeah,
it looks. But I didn't know how to do that myself, so I used a bit of a swear word in the literary world, but AI to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Jamie had this conversation while we were waiting for you to come on about AI because I'm completely I don't like it at all. I think that it's given, and I'm not like one of those people. Oh, Skynet's going to take over. I joke about AI coming to life and taking over, but I think it takes like I'm, as I said, a massive comic book fan. I've been reading since I was a child, and the work that they put into the art, whether it's drawing, hand drawing, or whether even they've moved to CAD drawings on tablets and stuff like that, takes a lot. It takes a hell of a lot to do that. And especially if you're an artist on a monthly series, that you have to produce all this art by someone just telling you, hey, this is a story. You have to produce all this art every month. And then now we have these programs that can just generate a picture within 5 minutes that to me is my personal opinion on AI. I don't like that now anyone can be an artist, so to speak. Although I don't really see, if you use AI, I personally wouldn't call you an artist. But yeah, that's just my personal opinion. I'm just really against AI in terms of pictures. And we've got a friend, Chris, who literally will do everything on AI. He's not a writer, but he will come up with, you know, scenarios and everything through AI, and we'll use it for everything, use it for work and everything like that. And that's one thing where we just don't agree on. I'm completely old school.
I think there should be a disclaimer. I think that
100%.
it's just two different things in general. Like, I was speaking to some authors through Instagram and social media, and they said that they're very. Some of them are like, look, we would never use AI for anything. I have ran stories through AI programs for, can you grammatically check this?
Yeah. What Jamie does, yeah.
So I'll run it through and say, can you grammatically check this? I've even asked AI questions about something. What do you think? What does this chapter make you think? Or what does this page make you feel? And it would say stuff like, it starts off positive and becomes eerie towards the end. And it's like, right, that's the feeling I was going for. Thanks. To me, AI is like the friend who you wouldn't get them to write your book, but you don't mind them telling you that it's dragging on a bit in the middle.
Yeah.
So, like, I think there is good tools, and obviously for writing, I don't want to take anyone's jobs away from them.
Yeah.
But so I will still send my books to an editor to get them to do bits and bobs. The problem I have is the fact that, not that I'm taking a job away from someone, but if I didn't use some, like, even spell check is AI to a certain degree. Yeah. It's still artificial in its intelligence. If I didn't use that, then my book just wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. Yeah, if I get to a position where I've sold 10,000 copies and I'm earning money, the next book I would happily invest in people to spell check and to proofread, but I can only afford a few waves of that. So to run it through a AI grammar checker, a couple of times will save a bit of money when I can provide a more finished piece to an editor to get them to go through, and so there's less back and forth in that stage.
Yeah.
But
no, 100% agree. It's a tool, so I use AI to do my grammar checking. When I finish my first draft for my next book, I'm going to run it through Grok on X.
Okay.
And you can go, tell me, are there any plot holes? Like, you can analyze it and, all that sort of thing. So I want to run through that and check it, grammar check it, and all that stuff. To me, that's just a tool. And then when it comes to the art side, I'm happy to use it for concept arts. I've created a few creatures for my latest book through that. But what I want to do is then take that image to an artist and I go, can you create something with feeling?
Yes. No, that's the other thing is, I don't know if you've ever tried to get any AI, whether it's ChatGPT, to write something.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Mm.
It's horrible. It's like there's no soul in it. The amount of input you would have to put into a generator in order to get them to pump something out, you've written it.
Yeah.
You've already written the problem. So it's like, I want them to go into a dark, and I want it to be just a dark room, and I want it to be described as the air felt heavy, and you've just written it now, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you're just going to tell me what I've just told you. So there is flaws with it, but I think as a tool, it's definitely well usable.
Yeah, I have that argument with our friend Chris all the time because he uses AI for everything. He's got free access because he uses it for work. Like, he's got all the access to all the, top of the line stuff. But he's like, oh, yeah, you just got to do this, you just got to do that. And he's written chapters and chapters of books. But like, the amount of times he's told me that he had to prompt this and he had to prompt that and he had to change this and he had to change it, but could have just written it yourself. Like
that's exactly it. It's exactly it. The amount of effort that goes into coming up with the right prompt.
Yeah. Now it is funny because on our other episodes with Chris, we do chat GPT intros and it's weird, just weird stuff. And it's hilarious. I have a lot of fun with that. We did a clip one way back when for an Oscar bait film about a woman that falls in love with a T-Rex skeleton. Make it Oscar bait. And we my niece did the voiceovers for it. I said just sound like a Disney princess, and it is hilarious. Like it's played so dead straight and is so ridiculous, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it can be fun.
Yeah, it can be fun, but I wouldn't write a book with it.
No.
No,
There's no flaw in it.
Yeah,
there has to be something in it where I think it's sometimes when you're reading and you can hear that someone is trying to describe something.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, no, I get it. Where it would have been just a copy pasted, response to something. If it's done by it just doesn't have the right.
Yeah.
I don't know, right tone. The other thing I think it's quite good for using for is if you've finished. I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever heard of the Save the Cat formula for writing?
No.
So Save the Cat formula, so much fun, right? If you again, the person who told me to write the book gave me the idea, the guy who inspired me to write, he gave me the idea for it. He said, use the Save the Cat formula for writing your books, like big books. Yep. Short stories doesn't really work with, but big books. And what it does is it breaks most stories fit into it. Most good stories fit into it. And it's the first 1% should be your introduction to the world. The next 5% should be provide the situation. And then basically it breaks it down into percentages, and it's a really good way for pacing a good book. And then because it's percentages, your book can be a Stephen King 12,000 page book, or it can be a 200 page book. But it's the percentages that it works with, and you can use it. But if you take the file that you're running and pop it into a generator and say, does this fit the Save the Cat format? It will then read the book instantly, which is ridiculous, and then say, oh, this middle section's too long to fit that format.
Yeah.
And then you can filter out the middle thing. So that's another thing, another good way. But you can choose other books. So you can say, does Stephen King's Shining fit the Save the Cat format?
Wow.
And it will work it out and go, no, it doesn't. This is a flaw to make. But most books hit it every time. Like all the Harry Potter books, it's almost like the authors deliberately used the format before the format was a thing.
Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have to think about it now. I'm thinking I'll look it up because I'm thinking about like the book I'm writing now. Like I wanted to go for 40,000 words. I'm at 32,000 now. And I'm just, it's like I don't want to stretch it out. I don't want to rush it. If it falls short, it has to fall short. Then But I think it's been a good pace so far. It's basically War of the Worlds meets The Road. So.
That sounds interesting.
It's pretty dark. We had a very dark conversation on our message chat today because I was going like ethical question and I got all different answers. So maybe I'll throw it at you now. Because it is a little bit dark. So imagine if a kid got taken and then turned into a monster. Is it unethical to kill the monster?
Oh, okay. So no, I don't think it is, because typically the child is no longer a child. They have become
exactly what I said.
Yeah.
They've become something else.
Yeah.
Now, if you really wanted to make it sad, if you were to kill the monster and the monster was to then revert back to being an exact form of the child before they turned into the monster, that would hurt a bit because you would feel that, if it could turn back because it's dead, then it might have been able to turn back without having died. So I think if you didn't want that to be an element, when they kill the monster, if they kill the monster and the monster remains in monster form, they'll lose the idea that it was ever the child. Yeah. And it won't hurt so much.
You've kind of gone the werewolf thing, when you kill a werewolf, it generally will turn back to a human.
Yeah.
So you've gone that would be Okay, but I suppose with a like it depends on what kind of werewolf, because you could have a werewolf that is a werewolf all the time, or you can have a werewolf, the traditional one, which only turns into a werewolf on a full moon. Then I would say that is a little bit harder. Like my answer was exactly yours. I said our other two friends were trying to debate it, and I said, look, if the child is not a child anymore and there is no possible cure to bring that child back, kill it. And
100%.
I said I would do the same. I don't have any children myself, and I won't. But I have two cats that I consider my children. I've raised them since they were born. If they turned into monsters and there was no chance of curing them, I would kill them without a second thought. And I said I would be upset when they turned into a monster, not when I killed them.
Yeah,
Because
that now you have to kill them.
who they are when they turn into the monster, not when you kill the monster. So that was I would say I would have no hesitation in killing a child if it became a monster and there was no chance that we could save that child.
Yeah. So
100%.
there's another thought process as well, which is like if you were to kill a serial killer that's not a monster, they're a serial killer, they were once a child.
Yeah.
It just took longer for that transformation than turning into a monster. They still turned into a monster, but it took a longer period of time. So it's the same sort of theory. It just happened.
100%, I would definitely I would 100% kill a serial killer because in my eyes, they're not human anymore.
I thought about the Hitler thing that I was talking about earlier. I think if I was to be forced to go back in time and solve the problem, what I would probably have done is I would have kidnapped Hitler.
Yeah.
And kidnapped Hitler and taken him to somewhere completely different, a completely different environment, and let him go, where he would be raised by different people. Because I think that
an Amazon tribe.
Yeah, just somewhere where he would have different influence, because it's nurture and nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's naturally a.
I do. I have to disagree with you there. I honestly think if you took Hitler out of the environment that he was in and put him with the most loving, accepting family, he would still be the man that he was. I truly believe that people like serial killers or mass murderers or child molesters are born that way.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion personally.
Yeah, I get the logic. The only flaw to it is that if you look at the history of like pretty much most serial killers you look at, they will fall into a series of categories. Typically, would be they had like a hard life growing up, and there'll be a series of events that built this person. The same as I would love to take credit for my children becoming the good people they are and becoming valued members of society because of the lessons I instill in them. I've also got to appreciate that their flaws are mine too. So if they grow up and they become a thief, or they come up and they become someone that's a spiteful, horrible person, I've got to see it as there's got to be something I have not nurtured out of them. It's just, I see, if you see bad people, they tend to have bad surroundings. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future, is a quote that I've heard before. So it might not work, but if it's got a 50% chance of working, me moving him somewhere else, and he wouldn't have access to whatever, he wouldn't have got drawn into World War One. Yeah. Perhaps he wouldn't have been subject to the thought process, because I think you can get taught that history shows when slavery happened, people didn't think of black people as human.
Yeah.
And many people thought like that because it was just the thought process that everyone went through. Now we know that is one of the most ridiculous ideas ever. But I think it was just a means to be able to manipulate a situation for your own gain.
Yeah.
And when you teach someone that this is okay, suddenly it becomes okay. A child in a non-smoking home tends to not smoke.
Yeah.
If everyone smokes in the house, they tend to be smokers. But so I guess what I'm saying is I think that if there is a possibility that it would take him out without me having to kill a child, because I think it would still make me feel a bit ill.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying in my opinion.
No, I love this.
Going back to your thing, I grew up. My parents both smoked heavily. I cannot
Yeah,
stand. I've never touched a cigarette in my life, and
amazing.
but hand over heart, I would never smoke a cigarette in my life. If you told me I had to smoke a cigarette to save my life, I wouldn't do it because I cannot stand the smell of it. I cannot, and that's why I've never smoked because my parents smoked and I could not stand the smell of it.
That's
Like the
interesting. That is.
smell of cigarette smoke absolutely drives me up the wall. I
And that's how
cannot
I feel
stand
about John Farnham
it.
because that's all my mother listened to.
But going back to your Hitler thing, look, I can definitely see if he was taken out of that environment. See, I'm not religious, but I do believe in fate and destiny. So I believe that when you're born, your life and your destiny is predetermined. That
Okay.
nothing you can do will change what you're meant to do. You may go off on a different path, but eventually you will get back to what you were put on this earth to do. And unfortunately, Hitler was put on this earth to be a racist motherfucker and murder a lot of people. Now, in saying what you were saying, taking him out of that environment, do I think that there's a chance that he might have not murdered the amount of people that he did? For sure. But if you took him to like a small British town, he might have become a serial killer or he might have become a murderer. He might not have killed as many people as he did or was responsible for as many deaths as he was, but I still believe he would still take lives. And that's
That's
where
it.
my whole thing is. If I was able to go back and kill Hitler as a baby, I 100% would. And I don't care if they threw me in jail. If they caught me before I could come back to my own time and threw me in jail, then so be it. And if people questioned me, I would just be like, yeah, cool, throw me in jail.
Dude, he's Hitler.
But yeah, obviously, thankfully, I haven't had to. But it goes to the same thing, I guess. I would do anything to protect my family. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like if someone tried to break in here and harm my wife, I would definitely,
Yeah. There's no question.
yeah, you would have to kill me before you would get to her.
Yeah.
Same thing about my animals. I absolutely, if I found out that you were responsible for the death of my animals, God help you, you would not see another day. And
John
that's
Wick.
Sorry?
John
Yeah,
Wick.
yeah, exactly. Well, I wish I was as good as John Wick, but that's just how I believe that I was raised. And I've had a lot of shitty things happen to me in my life, and I fully believe that that is my destiny. It's my destiny at the moment to be in a wheelchair, but it's also my destiny to learn how to walk again, and that's what I'm doing. But that's just what I believe. I've never been religious. I was never raised in a religious family. I do have a lot of friends who are religious, but me, I believe in the faiths. So that goes back to the whole Hitler thing. Do I believe that he was born to be a killer? Of course, 100%. And even if he was a little kid, and unfortunately, I would have to go back and take his life if it was possible, because I knew even if I saved one life, then it would be worth it.
Did you ever hear the story about the priest in Austria? He was in his like rectory doing whatever, and there's a lake nearby, and he heard splashing in the lake. So he ran out, and in the lake there was a child drowning.
Mm-hmm.
He dived into the lake and he removed the child, and that child grew up, and he was Adolf Hitler.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
But saying that priest didn't know what he would
but
do.
you don't need to go back and kill the
Yeah.
baby Hitler. You could just distract a priest for 10 minutes.
I could have gone to that rectory and spoken to the priest for an hour, and then
Yeah.
he would have died by himself. There you go.
There you go.
I can just see it now. You're acting like you want to convert, or acting all interested. You're watching. You're like, oh, okay, I gotta go.
Yeah, I'd be like, I just need to go outside to go to the toilet. You did yet, mate? No? Okay, cool. I'll just go back in and have another chat.
Again, it could be fictitious, but I heard it probably on a podcast. But apparently Hitler was saved by a priest from drowning. And I was like, I bet he's in heaven looking down going, what did I do?
But you know what? In his eyes, obviously, he was doing the right thing because he never knew that this person could grow up and massacre
absolutely
thousands of people. But I would totally understand that. I would actually here's me going, I'd go back and kill Hitler. But now I don't have to. It's like that line, I've just recently watched the Christopher Nolan Batman movies again, and it's a line at the end of the first one where Ra's al Ghul's in the train and he goes, "Oh, but you won't kill me." And Batman goes, "No, I won't kill you, but doesn't mean I have to save you." And that, and then he gets out and lets the train crash and Ra's al Ghul dies. But see, that's the same thing. I don't have to kill him. I just don't have to save him.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Well, this got deep. It's got deep.
Tell us what you're currently working on.
So I am working on a novel based in a fictional town in Surrey. Mm-hmm. It's got a group of friends, effectively the British version of the Losers Club.
Oh, nice.
There is something sinister in town, and all the adults seem to be not complicit, but aware of what is happening. And the children get curious and explore it. And it's their exploration of what's happening that builds a story that's full of good characters. That's my main thing. I've tried to build really good characters. In my short stories, you don't get an opportunity to build a character. You have to get people to quickly appreciate who's involved and then work from there. In this book, I've had the opportunity to be able to make you enjoy each character, and I think I've done quite a good job. I've taken character elements from people I know, and these people I really enjoy. So if it reads like I'm trying to write it, then I think people will fall in love with these characters and want them to do well.
I want this book now. Have you finished it?
It's pretty much there. I'm happy. I'll happily send you over a basic copy of it, the same as I did this one, and let you have a read. It's quite a slog. It's just 360 pages currently. Wow. So
wow.
So it's pretty much there. I've got people trying to find plot holes in it. I've got a few friends. I'm like, look, because there's like timelines running through it that run parallel to each other, and I want to make sure that they line up right. So I'm trying to get people to read it to give them opinion. And I would love for you guys to give it a look over. But it is a bit of a commitment.
It sounds like a mix of obviously it, but also Freddy Krueger, because, when Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, we know that parents are essentially responsible for the death of Freddy, who was a child molester, mind you, a very, very reasonable thing that they did. But then he comes back and obviously, so that sounds like my kind of thing.
Yes.
And so 100%, I would definitely, you don't have to, but I would 100% love to read that. And I guarantee you I'd probably get it done in a weekend, to be honest with you.
So its working title is Whispers in the Woods. So, and done the cover art for that as well. It's got a similar eerie theme to the book that you've seen, The Midnight Harvest, but it's the image is a girl walking through the woods. There's nothing there, and she's just by herself and looks very lonely. It's like cold and sinister. So, but so that should hopefully be coming out this year. But I will let you guys get a little preview first.
Sweet, yeah. And when it's out, we'll get you back on.
Yeah,
we'll
100%.
Talk all about that, and maybe we can talk Stalin next time. No.
No, I was going to say, I feel like next time we'll actually talk more about your work than just, horror movies and hypothetical, would we kill Hitler as a baby or, anything like that.
But this is how my stories are formed.
Yeah, 100%. Do you want to tell us where people can find you on the socials and where they can buy your book of short stories as well?
So you can find my book of short stories on Amazon. It's Midnight Harvest if you just write Midnight Harvest Don Campbell, there's a few of the other Midnight Harvests out there, but by Don Campbell and Don Campbell Author on Instagram. So if you just search that, my little logo's got like a little green background, I think. But yeah, so yeah, come along, join me for the ride, and I've just started, so I hope that I get better at what I'm doing.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, as I said, I think you've got a long career as I've just found you on Instagram now. I think you've got a long career as a horror writer. I really hope that some of your, even the short stories, get made into TV or short films or something like that, because I can see it. I can see you going a long way if you're only going to get better from here. And I absolutely love the first 2 stories I've read. So 100% behind you. I will be reading everything you create.
Thank you very much, buddy.
Cool. So guys, check out our socials, check out all our stuff down in the show notes. Our sponsors, Rebecca Cassells, Martin Kearns, myself. If you want to reach out, thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. And until next time, catch you later.
See you next time.
See you later, guys.
In 1932, the Australian Army declared war on 20,000 emus and lost. It's a part of Australian history that not many know about. Maybe that's because history is written by those who win. So if you want to hear the full story of the Great Emu War of 1932, then check out my book, Letters from the Emu War. Read letters, newspaper articles, and journal entries. With every turn of the page, you will gain a deeper understanding of the life and times of emus at war. So head on over to jabryden.com and grab a signed copy today.